Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Robert Ciccinelli, and I'm on the board of directors of the Pennsylvania Association for Rational Sex Offense Laws, or PARSOL. PARSOL is here today to champion the modernization of Pennsylvania laws so that all of our families, communities, and the Commonwealth are safer. I'm sure you've noticed many of the props and signs PARSOL's brought here today illustrate how our lives have changed since 1995, which is when Pennsylvania enacted its first version of Megan's Law. One example I think you'll all recognize is Microsoft's groundbreaking system, Windows 95. Is anyone still using that? Pennsylvania's registry laws are stuck in 1995, while everything else has moved forward. With us today are a number of people whose lives have been impacted in one way or another by these obsolete laws that remain on the books in our Commonwealth. With those thoughts in mind, let me introduce Josiah Kremis, the chair of PARSOL's board of directors, and he's going to expand on them. Josiah?
Thanks, Bob, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As Bob mentioned, I'm Josiah Kremis, chair of PARSOL, the Pennsylvania Association for Rational Sexual Offense Laws. We are here today to advocate for a safer Pennsylvania. Sexual violence destroys lives and tears apart families, which is why our response to sexual harm must be both compassionate to survivors and effective at preventing future harm. We should never tolerate approaches that minimize these crimes or fail to center victim safety. That's precisely why evidence-based prevention as far as smart resource allocation matters so much. Victims deserve policies that actually work, not just ones that sound tough. Today we're here to say something that needs to be heard inside this building. Pennsylvania Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act, SORNA, is stuck in 1995. On October 21st, 1995, 30 years ago last week, Governor Tom Ridge signed Pennsylvania's Megan's Law. This law supposed that anyone who caused sexual harm had a frighteningly high likelihood of reoffending. Think about that. 1995. That was 30 years ago. Our phones had wires. Windows 95 was brand new. And in the aftermath of several tragic cases, lawmakers across the country rushed to create the first sex offense registries, driven by fear and panic, not science or data. And while technology, medicine, and public safety policy have all advanced since then, SORNA has barely changed. But 30 years has gone by, and in 2025, we know better. We know that modernizing the system means focusing resources on current risk, not on decades-old cases. That's how you protect families. Recent claims about widespread reoffending don't align with research from the United States Department of Justice, Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, and Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. Comprehensive federal and state studies tracking hundreds of thousands of cases show sexual reoffense rates are among the lowest of any crime category, with over 92% not rearrested for sexual crimes within 9 years. And we also know that effective evidence-based treatment programs contribute significantly to risk reduction and help individuals become contributing members of society. Today, Pennsylvanians are still placed on the registry from decades to life, not because of a current evaluation of risk, but simply because of the name of their offense. No review, no recognition of rehabilitation, just a one-size-fits-all punishment that follows them for years. The result? We destabilize people that have already served their sentences, making it harder to find housing, harder to work, harder to reintegrate. These are the pillars of success that this system blocks. And this system isn't cheap. We spend tens of millions every year to maintain a massive registry that research shows does not reduce sexual violence. Even our Commonwealth police departments spend thousands of hours annually on address verifications instead of solving cases while crime labs sit underfunded and prevention education gets cut from school budgets. This boost allocation of scarce law enforcement resources makes communities less safe, not more. PARSOL is here today to call for change. We need to replace the current catch-all system with evidence-based risk assessments, create clear, timely pathways for removal based on demonstrated stability, and reduce unnecessary public exposure that harms individuals, families, and communities rather than protects. Other states, including several of our neighbors like New Jersey, New York, and Delaware, are already doing this. They're saving money and making their communities safer. Pennsylvania can do the same. But first, we must stop pretending that a 1995 solution is good enough for 2025, as we now have over 30 years of research from noted institutions specializing in sexual harm prevention and safety. In quoting Milton Friedman, a brilliant economist of his day once said, quote, "One of the great mistakes is to judge policies and programs by their intentions rather than their results," end quote. So, it's time to modernize SORNA, focus on what works, and finally align public safety with evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Josiah. I'd now like to introduce Joey Nicholson. While incarcerated at SCI Benner Township, Joey created the Pathfinder Project alongside of treatment providers, Department of Corrections case managers, and other advocates. He transformed his sentence into a second chance for everyone. Joey is a remarkable speaker. He's going to share some stories about how our outdated system fails us and how evidence-based modernization will better serve everyone today. Joey?
Good afternoon, everyone. Gary's son made a terrible mistake that cost him years of his life. He accepted his punishment, completed treatment behind bars, and came home determined to do better today. But today, he works full-time, raises his child, and lives responsibly. Yet, the registry still treats him like the man he once was, not the one he's worked to become. His story reminds us how much potential is lost when systems don't modernize to recognize real growth. Marcus found purpose while serving his sentence by working on a building trades crew that introduced him to the electrical field. Since his release, he's fulfilled every condition asked of him: probation, treatment, steady employment, and also paying taxes. His therapist confirms he's at an extremely low risk for reoffending. He's done everything we claim rehabilitation is for, yet outdated restrictions continue to block him from jobs that are in serious demand. Kelly was 18, fresh out of high school, and working as an assistant field hockey coach for the same district she graduated from when her 16-year-old boyfriend's parents pressed charges. The state prosecuted it as institutional assault. She poured her college savings into a defense attorney and has now been on the registry for 25 years. Now, a mother of two, she skips her children's school events to spare the embarrassment. A reminder that when policy lacks nuance, entire families carry the weight. These stories reveal something deeper than punishment. They expose how far behind our laws have fallen. Modern times demand modern policies, built on what we now know about accountability, growth, and rehabilitation. Now there's me. I was that kid that everyone thought had it all figured out. I was a standout high school quarterback, a leader, and someone the community believed in. Then I made choices that cost me everything. 14 years in prison will change any man or woman, but what changed me wasn't the time, it was the work. I learned that real transformation doesn't start in a cell. It starts in the heart, and then it transforms your mind. I came home with one goal: to use what I learned to help others find that same spark before the system or life breaks them. Today, I lead my county's reentry and recovery mentor program, which is gaining serious traction across Pennsylvania. It's supported by law enforcement, treatment providers, therapists, correctional administrators, and members of the faith community. People who believe in modernization over marginalization. That tells you something. People are starting to realize that safety doesn't come from exclusion, it comes from engagement. Because when people like me, people who have actually been through it, learn from it, and grow beyond it are given a real chance, we give back. We're the mothers and the fathers, the mentors, the coaches, the co-workers, the community builders that make neighborhoods stronger and safer for everyone. We're not asking for sympathy. We're asking for modernization, for systems that match the level of change already happening inside the people that they once threw away. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Next, we're honored to hear from State Representative Emily Kincaid, who represents the 20th House District in Allegheny County. Among her several committee assignments, Representative Kincaid sits on the House Judiciary Committee. Representative?
Thank you. I'm Emily Kincaid. I represent the 20th House District. And before I was a lawyer, I was a criminal defense attorney. And I think that we need to acknowledge the thing that very often stops progress from happening here on this particular issue. The conflict between supporting survivors and modernizing laws that hold their perpetrators accountable. We believe survivors. We want to support survivors of sexual violence. But the reality is that many people who go on to commit sexual offenses were victims first. And when we don't recognize the trauma that leads people to offend, then we are not recognizing how it is that we can best serve our communities and best make our communities safe. The people who are on the SORNA registry are people that can and should be giving back to our communities. These are people who have been held accountable, and consistently, as has been said, study after study shows that recidivism among people who commit sexual offenses is most likely to be what we call survival crimes, because these are folks who cannot find housing or jobs or a place in the community to be able to consistently give back. And when we put people in a position where they can't find gainful employment or keep gainful employment, where they have difficulty reintegrating into society, what happens is then they disappear. And if we want to ensure that our communities are safe, then we also need to make sure that we are incentivizing people to be a part of the community, that we are not ostracizing people. Recidivism goes down when people have gainful employment, when they have steady and safe housing, when they have a community that they are invested in. And that is true across the board, regardless of what someone's offense is. It has been 30 years since we passed this law. And there is so much more evidence now that we understand more about why it is that people commit crimes and why they commit the crimes that they do, and how it is that we can actually most effectively keep our communities safe. And in that way, it means that we reduce the number of victims that happened. We prevent people from becoming victims. We prevent people from committing crimes because we are supporting not just survivors, but also people who have committed these offenses. By working together and making sure that we make smart, reasonable, evidence-based policy, we are making our communities overall safer. And this is not a conflict between supporting survivors and supporting people who have been convicted of sexual offenses. This is acknowledging that we can work these policies together to ensure that everyone lives in a safe community, that they are able to reach their fullest potential, that they are able to thrive and give back. And we want that for everyone, not just for some people. We don't want to other people just because they committed a terrible act. People who are willing to do the work, to get better, to learn from their mistakes, to make amends, to pay their debt to society, deserve to have the opportunity to be in society as a full member of society if we are willing as legislators to be bold and actually take a stand and make sure that we are making evidence-based policy. These are common sense reforms from 30 years of understanding what works and what doesn't. And we cannot be held in the past because we are afraid to make changes and how that will be perceived. We need to make sure that we are supporting survivors and that we are supporting the people who committed these crimes and have learned from their mistakes. Everybody deserves a second chance. Nobody should be thrown away because of the worst thing that they've ever done. And I think that there is a real opportunity to make sure that we are making this a better place for everybody. These are common sense reforms, and I'm happy to support them.
Thank you, Representative Kincaid. Up next, we're honored to hear from the Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Representative Tim Briggs. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to echo what Representative Kincaid said. She is bold, and she understands do no harm, making our community safe. Too many times this issue becomes really difficult for legislators to get their heads around. And they want to continue that approach from 30 years ago and marginalize folks. We believe in second chances. We want to provide the tools necessary for our communities to be safe. We want to be able to use evidence-based assessments to make sure the appropriate folks are being monitored and getting the care they need and the services they need. And the ones that are welcoming more in our community, we want to be able to make that easier. The 30-year-old approach of keeping folks on the SORNA list for decades, we need to modernize that and to allow for a real way to repeal the decision and to be removed from the list. There's real common sense things that the agenda is trying to advance. Unfortunately, 30 years is a long time, but no time better than the present to start tackling them. And I think that's what today's kicking off, is that desire to try to keep our communities safe, use modern thinking on addressing these issues, and doing it in a fair and compassionate way. I am looking forward to working with PARSOL, and John is always a good advocate for any issue that we have tackling in this space, and looking forward to continuing that effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Briggs, and I just want to thank you, Chairman and Representative Kincaid, for helping to make this all possible today. Finally, I'd like to welcome Olivia Schmidt, who is the Secretary of the Board of the PARSOL organization. Olivia?
Thank you, Bob, Representatives Kincaid and Briggs, and everyone for sticking around with us today. I want to respect everyone's time, so I'll close today's event with just a few quick remarks. Our priority must be preventing the first offense, not endlessly punishing someone who has already been held accountable. That means funding things like age-appropriate prevention programs, community awareness, better screening and counseling for at-risk youth, and robust services for survivors. Every dollar we spend on maintaining an ever-growing registry is a dollar we're not spending on these frontline protections. It is for these and all the reasons shared today that we urge the Pennsylvania legislature to replace a failed catch-all registry with evidence-based approaches that actually keep us safe. Simply put, the registry isn't making communities safer, and we should dramatically reform or even eliminate it in favor of something that does work. Public safety is the ultimate goal. 3 decades is a long time. I just turned 30 last week. And it's been spent having these ineffective, obsolete policies sold to us as the quote, the best we can do. That is simply a lie. We can do so much better. We thank you for joining us today as we take steps forward towards a safer Pennsylvania for all.
Thank you, Olivia, and thank you, everyone, for being here. This concludes the presentation. Out of respect for our friends here at the Department of General Services, who must reset the rotunda for the next function, any questions or discussion you may have will be taken down at our table in the East Wing lobby at the bottom of the escalators. Thank you very much.